and to be in an environment where we are supported and where it's healthy and exciting to reveal ourselves and express ourselves and learn from each other, and especially from our guests today, and to keep growing as communities in all of our beautiful diversity. So I'm thrilled to celebrate that today, especially in a context in the world where there is so much expression that is being restricted, and so many valiant, courageous struggles that are being put out there to keep the fires burning in a peaceful, healthy, growing, important way. So just acknowledging the space that we're in, and how these kind of conversations in these kind of environments hopefully contribute to making the world an even better place for everybody in it, for all of us here today as well. What a thrill to have you both here, and you, Henry, I love you. What a thrill to have you both here. I won't repeat anything in that bio, but what an incredible impact the two of you have made, and the generosity of your art, music. You have performed with people, such significant people from around the globe. You've written books. You've had your books adapted to TV. Your music has been part of the many, many films. You beat out Elton John and Lady Gaga for an award. Just saying. Not competitive or anything, but that's a nice little, nod. And you made Seth Meyers giggle like a schoolgirl in your interview. They did an interview in 2022 with Seth Meyers. I've watched it. He's a late night talk show host. I've watched him a lot. And I watched this interview, and he was giggling like I've never seen. It was
It's
great.
delightful.
Yeah, but you just work some magic with them. And that's not in and of itself necessarily an accomplishment, but it is a nod to how open you are and how you draw so much good out of so many people with all that you do and with being yourselves.
Thank you.
So that's just to start the celebration. Today, what we're hoping to do is to learn more about Tegan and Sara's journeys through music, literature, and I think really timely today, advocacy and the incredible contributions they've made with the Tegan and Sara Foundation and other things. I thought to start off, we could offer some context, and Anne-Marie, because we have met before. This is not a blind date, although it would be an exciting one. Yeah, maybe Anne-Marie, you want to...
Was it back in 2017 that we attended a concert in St. John, New Brunswick? And I remember we needed to arrange childcare, so it was that long ago.
Wow.
In order to go from our camp in New Brunswick up to St. John. And I think that's the first time we met. And that was thrilling. Our friends in Stars were playing. And so they introduced us to you. You don't have to remember that you met.
Fangirl. I was that tall on fangirl.
Yeah. And then Tegan and Sara sent me the galley proofs of their memoir, High School, which I read, and if you haven't read it yet, you have to. And I think there's some pre-signed copies.
There are,
yeah, out there. So make sure you get your copy. It is poignant, it is sweet, it is inspiring, it is revelatory. It's so personal, and it's so well crafted. And they had actually asked me to read it, and their publisher asked me if I would give a blurb, which I was absolutely delighted to do. And I was then invited to a book launch event that you did in Montreal. What was that, 2022? 2019? Okay, yep, just pre-lockdown. And so I went, and I was thrilled, because I was on the list. Yeah, and so we went, and we saw you. It was a beautiful event, and you read, and you played, and you sang, and there was a whole visual component to it. But afterwards, you invited me onto the bus. Okay? I went behind the theater and onto the tour bus, and people ate MacDonald's, and I was there.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I had a little bit of embarrassment after the fact, where I was like, just ate McDonald's in front of Anne-Marie MacDonald.
You can tell how important that event was, because I was there, but Anne-Marie has forgotten.
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to say it, but I was like, technically, I brought you both in. So you both watched, but individuation is really important. So Sarah and I are really working on I statements. So if she just remembers being there on her own, we have to just let her remember it that way.
Successfully. Yeah, so that was beautiful. And then a little while later, your foundation reached out and invited me to sign a letter in protest of the suite of anti-trans, restrictive, anti-LGBTQ2SI+ legislation being tabled at that time in their home province of Alberta. And I was honored to sign that letter. And I was joined by, there's so many signatures, right? I was particularly chuffed, however, to notice that there were a lot of M's between MacDonald and Murray, because my whole life it's like Anne Murray. But yes, Anne Murray signed that petition. I was very proud to put my name on that petition as well. So it was a short walk when Julie asked us to curate and participate in the Pride Forum, of the Mian Forum for Pride Week. I thought, is there a world in which Tegan and Sara join us here in Stratford? So it was a long shot, and I reached out, and it was a dream come true. So here we are.
And I will say that we had said outlawed any public appearances in any work. And when we got your text message that you wanted to get on the phone and talk with us, I was like, oh no. And then we got on the call and you asked, and like without even talking to each other, we were like, of course we'll do it, you know? And then we called our manager and we're like, don't be mad at us, but we agreed to do a thing. Yeah, how can we say no to you?
Thank you. That's high praise.
Can we also just embarrass you a little bit and say...
I'm already embarrassed.
Okay. You know, and part of why, I mean, there were so many people that we wrote about and thought about when we were writing our memoir, but you were so central to our high school and queer story. Fall on Your Knees is like, for us, was revelatory for us as teenagers. And our mom, who claimed not to know we were gay, / me when I came out, seemed very surprised and shocked. It seemed like she was actually trying to turn us gay, because she was always giving us opportunities to experience the gay lifestyle via, you know, books and film. And she would always come home. She was like very cool mom, and she would come home, you know, on a Friday night, we'd have friends over, and she'd say, I picked up some movies from Blockbuster, and like it would all be gay shit. And we would just like, no joke, in 12th grade, I had just started hooking up with my best friend, who was a woman, and one night my mom came home from work, and she literally brought in all these VHS tapes, and she was like, we were like looking through it, and it was like, When Night is Falling, and like, you know, and my friend Jamie turned to me and she was like, is your mom aware of what's happening? Or is this just random luck that she's just basically renting you like every lesbian film that's come out? But I think our mom associated queerness with alternativeness, and our mom was always very alternative, so I think she was actually just trying to be cool. Like, not trying to be cool, she was cool, she is cooler than us still, but she was just trying to get us as much subversive art as she possibly could. It just happened that it was really connecting with us in a deeper way. And I think too, because Fall on Your Knees has a musical thread as well. I mean, it's obviously so important in the book, and I think the combination of music and queerness. My mom gave us that book, like, so cool. Like, just was. Oh yeah. Oh, my mom was the gateway to everything. Even drugs. She doesn't like it when we say that, but she didn't literally give us drugs, but she constantly was bragging about all the drugs she did when she was in high school. And we were like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna just be sober in high school? Like, wow, God. Anyway, she doesn't like that joke, but or any jokes like it. But yeah, she gave us the book. She would always read books and then say, I think you would like this, and we would pass it back and forth, and we gave it to all of our friends, and we read it in school, we read it in class, we reread it, and it was, you know, we talk a lot, and this is part of why I think our career and ultimately the foundation has been so inspirational, is we had, I don't like to say we had no example, but we had such few examples that, you know, to understand that at some point we were part of, we were now part of the art that other people were going to find.
That's,
you know?
huge, because even when you were coming of age, there were few.
There were a few, but when we start to list it, it feels like there was actually a lot, but like it wasn't a lot.
No, the fact that you can just list it.
Yeah, fair.
There was no
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And I find it particularly moving that your mom, and I think I was probably the same age as your there were fewer opportunities like that for when we were coming of age and coming out. And for there to be a Canadian community of queer elders, basically, and of art and culture and all kinds of achievements that can be shared, and hopefully is not up for the kind of erasure that happens over and over and over again, right? So that cross-generational, it's very moving, it's very real, it's profound.
Yeah.
And I know how old that makes me seem. It makes me seem as old as I am. And but it's beautiful.
No, but it is beautiful, and it's so important. And I think, more than, I think Tegan and I have always been like sort of like embarrassed or sort of like uncomfortable with saying like, oh, we're role models, or whatever that is. But at some point I realized like that was doing us a disservice, and it was doing a disservice to the people who were finding us inspirational and impactful, and instead like embracing it and thinking, oh my god, like maybe someone's kind of sort of half clueless mom is bringing home a Tegan and Sara, book and going like, oh, you would like this, and then being like, wait a second, you're gay. But like I thought you were gonna point out like a clueless mom buys high school, brings it home, is like, you love this band, and thinks it's about us being gay, but actually it's really just about how much acid that we took. Wait, I thought this was an inspirational book. But I was gonna say that that your book, like all the things we're making are artifacts that are out there that we found, and I think that's probably one of the coolest parts about being an artist, whether people find it today or in 10 years, or I don't think we'll be here much longer than that, but I think like there's convince me otherwise. But I think that was one of the things that like informed so much of our early art, was that there wasn't that impatience there is now to like, when someone makes something now, they want people to hear it now. They want to go online and post it now. And I think one of the things that I think a lot about when I'm making things now is how it felt to discover, like even I don't know why I always think of Go Ask Alice, or you know that terrifying memoir or story that now I've just read. I listened to a whole podcast about how it's kind of fake or whatever. But
Really?
yeah, so I did a lot of drugs and I can't actually remember the story, but I think it's fake. Is basically it was created, but look, to find these little things throughout our young life and to find pieces of ourselves in it is so significant. And I always think about that now when I make things. Like, as much as I would want it to be very successful, even if someone finds it 15 years from now and it creates some sort of connection for them, it's like that's the gift of being an artist.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you're, speaking of looking back when you were younger, you're just in the mid blush of your careers. You're just really getting started in some ways. I can say this because I'm older than you, and also you have so much energy and you've already accomplished so much that I know that that's just sort of the beginning. Whether you accumulate more work or you go deeper into things, or the growth is going to be exponential from here. But looking back on when you were younger, how do you see the arc? Like, do you see the work you've done as being completely different than what you do now? Or could you have imagined back then that you would be having this trajectory of in your music, like the changes and growth, like from learning to play the guitar in secret in your memoir to like the Oscar, Academy Awards and all that? Complete shifts.
No. I definitely have been regularly surprised at, and I'm not saying this to be funny, but like, I think Tegan and I we are charismatic, we are sometimes not annoying enough to hold the attention of a group of people, and I think we have something special. I totally think we are special. I have met wildly talented people, like just like bananas talented, like people sing and you just like fall on the ground, you can't believe what you're hearing. Like, we're not those people, like we do something special when we sing together. But I've been around. I want to take a moment. I've been doing a lot of therapy. Anyone's recording this part of the show, if you could just send it to me, because like when we're not annoying, sometimes can hold a group of people's attention. Not that talented, can't really sing. I didn't say we couldn't sing. I said I've been around people that are like staggeringly talented in this way, where I'm like, if it's like a scale and that's them, right? And then like, shit, where are we at the scale? I think we're like in the middle. I think we're in the middle. And I don't mean that I'm not trying to say that to be bad. I'm just trying to be realistic. And I think that when we started out, my vision or what I hoped for was that it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I hope we can have a long career doing this exact thing. I just wanted to be able to have a long career doing what I wanted to do. Like that was all I cared about. And I was, as a young person, even when we launched our music career, by which I mean we just said we're not going to university. My mom was so pissed, and we said, but we'll do music. That was like the launching of our career. And my mom was like, well, you better get out there and book gigs. And so we played at like a coffee shop a couple times a week, and you know, it wasn't much of a career launch, but like for all intents and purposes, it was like the launching of our career. And I just remember thinking, because I just don't want to be the employee of someone. Like I just remember that feeling of like, joke's on her, because guess who she works for? Me.
So you're what I heard, and I've done therapy too. So what I'm hearing,
guys, I've done lots of therapy too. I'm just putting it out there, just in case anyone starts to think about it.
That's really why we're here. I think you're describing the fact that what you and Tegan do is greater than the sum of its parts. And the scientific term for that is it's an emergent quality. And that's when you put all these things together. Some of them might be excellent, some of them might be competent. There's a whole range, right? You put them together and it's an order of magnitude, it's qualitatively something new and something bigger. Right?
That's a very nice way to put it. That's a much better way to put it.
There's a generosity, especially when you acknowledge that, oh, it's time for me to agree to be a role model, to agree to be looked to. That is agreeing to take on a kind of leadership, right? And that is maturity. And there you are, like you're in your mid-40s, right? That's kind of just right on schedule. There's also, I think there's a peculiarly and beautifully Canadian ethos and character at work here, insofar as you have really branched out and worked in all these different media and genres. That is not uncommon. We do that. I work in theater, actor, playwright, author, blah blah blah, right? All these different.
I plan to be a rock star.
It's not too late.
It's never too late.
But I am not.
And you don't even have to be good, according to Sara.
That too is very Canadian. That
That is also very Canadian. But this idea of wearing many hats, sometimes for pragmatic reasons, but also just because it's the curiosity. It's the curiosity of the artist. And there are so many theater artists and so many fiction writers in Canada who do many, many different kinds of storytelling, right? And it seems to me that you start with your guitar in secret, but you are always telling stories, right?
And that means you're also always listening. You're listening to somebody. You're listening to some, because to be heard and to be received and for you to touch so many notes in people means you're listening to something bigger than yourselves and responding to something. And to your point, Sara, like I know what you're riffing about, but when I was working at the theater school and I worked with young artists for so many years, it was so inspiring. But there's kind of a truth for an actor anyway, that your talent is already there. Like every child is creative, every person is gifted, but the game changer is the work that you do, right? So there's kind of this a powerful humility to saying it's not just about your gifts. It's actually about how you apply yourself and the discipline and the humility and the commitment and that part. And that is something that like shot you out of the hemispheres because you were committed to something greater. As Anne-Marie's saying, not only is your artistry greater than the sum of its parts, but your discipline and commitment to relationship, to the work, that's really superstar.
I really resonated with that because that's music, you know, like when you think of our average record has 14 songs on it, maybe 2 will be the ones that people call out for, which means 12 technically were Sara's. It's not true. Our first big song was Walking with a Ghost, that's Sara's song. I've just been slacking. No, you're right. No. But then also like the first 10 years was traveling around the world playing half-empty clubs or empty clubs trying to win people's attention, and when you didn't, it was failure. You know, it was trying to not incur a ton of debt. It was trying not to be disappointed, or trying not to disappoint our record label and be dropped. It was, you know, trying to get over the headlines, which were always like lesbian twin duo, you know, and terrible press, and like it was almost all failure. It was almost all criticism. It was almost all like just a consistent flow of the universe saying, there's no reason for you to be doing this, stop. And yet there was a compulsivity and maybe like a sort of like divine connection to the feeling of making things and delivering them to an audience that propelled us through that. And that is, I believe, the only reason why we are sitting here 26 years later still as artists, is because it just didn't matter what we encountered. There was never a question for me that this is what we were supposed to be doing. And when people come up and ask advice about how to be an artist or how to make it, I don't know how to tell you to have that feeling inside of you that just nothing could happen that would prevent me from making things. Nothing. I mean, death.
Yeah. Well, and actually, on that note,
I'm here to kill you.
Yeah. How do you like the struggle part is so important for people to hear, for me to hear over and over again, because you really do get the impression that people are just discovered, right? And no one is ever discovered. It's always hard work, and it's particularly hard work for women, for lesbians. Like there are groups of us for whom the work is exponentially harder to express what's important to be heard. And so what happens when you actually have what is considered positive feedback or success or whatever the word is? Like you're on a platform where you're celebrated and you're getting got, people are getting it. How do you, like, are you able to be fed by that? Like, is it nourishing, or is it still like that doesn't really exist? That's not really true.
I think sometimes, yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I think for both of us, and I'll just say too, like when I was describing us somewhat jokingly earlier, I never said I didn't believe in us or that I don't think that we are, you know, destined to do this. Like something has propelled us, and especially through what Tegan is describing, you know, the earlier part of our career where it seemed everything around us was determined to sort of tell us the opposite. You know, like I don't do this because of an audience. I do or money or any of those things. Like I did it because I had to. Like I felt like I didn't know how to be free of the addiction or desire to like take a feeling and a thought and put it into something and share it with people. And even if it was like one person, I know that's like a cliche, but like I did feel this desire to do that. It didn't always make me happy, but I felt like I had to do it. And I felt like I was called to do it. And so it's confusing because sometimes the big moments, you know, are really like a big audience and like an amazing set where we come off stage and everybody's like really excited. Sometimes that produces a really significant low for me, where I always think of this like interview or this video archival footage with Depeche Mode. I always think of this. I saw this when I was young, but they play Wembley Stadium and it's this incredible show, and he gets backstage, the lead singer gets backstage, and he just is crying, and he says, "I'll just never have that again. It will never be like that again." And I think there is this kind of, I know, it's so intense. It's so intense. But I think that's it. Like sometimes when you have these big significant highs, there is this feeling, a depressed feeling, like I can't live in that forever. I can't have that forever. And it's such a downer. It's kind of like taking ecstasy. Like anyone who's done it, there's like the moment where you're like, we're not meant to feel this way. Like, you know, I haven't done drugs in a very long time, I want to say, but it sounds like it. It sounds like a distant memory that you just keep recalling. Yeah. It was pretty distant, but anyway. Anyways, I'm just gonna say that, but then there's other things like, this is just sticking out in my brain because I fell asleep listening to Fresh Air last night. Like, talking to Terry Gross and being on Fresh Air was like a bucket list thing for me my whole career, and we got to when we put out our memoir, and like, that's
September 19th,
it was on our
2019.
birthday. It was on our birthday, and I remember the feeling of just pure satisfaction and joy. That conversation, every time she laughed, I just thought, what a pleasure to make her laugh. Like, it was just.
But maybe that lends to what you're asking, which was like, does it feed you? This is something that I've been, thinking a lot about, is the difference between attention and acknowledgement. And I think that sometimes an audience of people singing along, screaming, like adoring you, appreciating your art, doesn't feel like acknowledgement, it feels like attention. And I think as we've gotten older and we've gotten further into our career and our lives have gotten fuller and not bigger, like as we've started to build out family and try out different disciplines and spend more time at home and become disgruntled about social media and the parasocial relationship we all have with it, it's like, yeah, the feeling that I desire to feel, like the feeling of being fed, comes from a very different place now, and it can come from a really amazing conversation with Terry Gross, or some of the time we've spent with you guys. Like it's so satisfying to also just talk with other creatives. Last year I wrote music and just sent it to Sarah, a couple friends in my management, and then decided I didn't want to put any of it out. Because I felt acknowledged, I felt seen, I felt like I'm an artist still, I can do this, I'm capable. Sarah had written me and said, these are fantastic songs. And I thought about the process of releasing them, which is the sad part of this, is that part disgusted me so much, I just didn't want to do it. It exhausted me so much. I'm like, my superhero name right now is Tegan, and I'm just like, the thought of having to like go out and create the packaging and the video and do hey guys, what's up? Sarah and I, we got new songs coming at you, and we're gonna waterfall these bitches for the next couple months. Like I've just instead just kind of put them in a folder on my computer and just opened up a document and just started writing a new book. And I don't know, like I just was like, maybe I'm just a creative, and that finally, maybe it is middle age, maybe it is we're in this perfect moment where it might be about, you said, going deeper into things.
Mm-hmm. Well, the engine, there's an engine that we all have and need when we're young. Speaking as an artist and a lesbian, but I think it's probably a human thing. There's an engine when you're young that compels you to become who you are. Young adulthood, you're driven, right? You're driven to express and to do what you need to do, whatever that is in whatever form. But then that engine, if it continues at that rate when you're 20 years later in your life, that can be a problem because it's a different context,
and you're running on adrenaline.
Yeah.
And that's very, very hard on a person. So what I'm hearing is, again, that it's a very, it's a very creative, it's a creatively rich time, as well as perhaps a restorative time. Is it a nourishing time? So you've started to answer this a little bit, but what do you do, where do you go for nourishment? What does that look like?
I think right now, what's so, at least in my own personal life, being a new parent, I feel really nourished by being home. Like being for the first time probably in my life, and I've had like versions of this during other, like more introverted periods of my life, but like I feel very off the grid, if you will. Like I feel really satisfied by, actually, this is so silly, but it's like, I'm not craving media attention, or I'm not craving like people hearing my creative ideas right now. But like I sit down to eat dinner, and if my toddler like unprompted says, "Thanks for cooking dinner, Mom," I'm like, oh my god. Standing ovation. Like, and if we can get through the meal and he doesn't throw all of it on the floor or inside of his butt or whatever, like I'm just like, it sounds so like whatever, but it's so meaningful. I feel so connected right now to like family and routine and I guess like in a strange way, like being a parent is my sort of new creative practice right now. Like I'm obviously like trying to be creative in other ways, thinking more about my mortgage, for example. But but yeah, I don't know. I feel mature, and also, like, I feel like I said this over dinner the other night too, but like, I used to feel really comfortable with being personal, and I think there was something about when we started our career, the world seemed bigger and more like opaque to me somehow. It was like, even when you would put something super personal out into the world, it just felt so hard to reach people, and everything just feels so like surfacey, and like, I don't know, it's like the digital age has just made everything feel like it's required of you. When you used to put something out personal, it was sort of like brave and intense, and there was a reward in that, and now it's sort of like required, I think, to like cut through. And
I don't want to interrupt that thought by this reminding me that I wrote this thing down the other day that Mike Birbiglia said, like that you can't use the stage, like your time on stage, as therapy with the audience, because your job as a performer is actually to give the audience something. And I think we're living in a time where it feels like we're not, because it's like we make the art, but instead of us getting on stage convincing you to buy it, you just stream it. It's worthless to you.
not actually worthless to you, but like it feels like that we're in a new era where the exchange for so long was.
Well, now there's no friction. It's just there. You can be sitting in a movie theater and hear 13 seconds of a song. You can bring it up immediately, know what it is, put it on a playlist, and forget you ever had that moment where that deep sort of nurturing of obsession and connection and relationship with a piece of art now, it's so much more difficult to do that, which leads me back to this idea of these artifacts of things that we've found. Like, I like when someone comes up to me and they're really, really, really young and they just found us. That gives me hope. Like, that helps me to sort of figure out how to make the next thing. So for right now, I feel like it's less about nourishment, and I'm actually just, I think it's two-part. One, it's seeking new inspiration. So looking in other creative fields, meeting other creatives, and seeing if that sparks something different in me. And it's not to say that I'm not inspired by Sara. Like, I would do anything for Sara to send me a new song, which makes me feel very emotional to say, but like, I would do anything for her to make something new.
God, there's so much pressure. I don't have time. I'm like making food for my kid. That's all I do.
No, but I don't. You know how much they eat at that age?
I had to get a Costco membership. That's what
Okay, he eats more calories than I do a day. I don't mean to promote. I mean just to hear it, because that is what inspires me. When I was in a hotel room in wherever we were, Paris, and Sara, I had a Dell laptop, like heavy, like a heavy old school, laptop Dell in 2003. And Sara, we arrived into Paris and to go on this awful tour opening for this band Hot Hot Heat, which was great, but they were about to be the biggest band in the world in that moment, and we were lesbians. And so she pulled out this like jewel case and opened it up with a CD and put it into my laptop and played me Walking with a Ghost. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's the next record. And I think so part of me right now is just looking for that. Like, when's that piece of art gonna come that's gonna make me feel like we're like we're on the track and we're locked in, Acting.
That was really good. That was really good. Sound effects.
Yeah,
That was good.
at least I do it all. The second thing I think that I'm doing right now is breathing. Like, and I mean on behalf, like, for everyone, like, just take a moment and see, will anyone find it? Will they find the art we made? Will they discover it? Will that create inspiration? Maybe it's one person, or maybe it's a viral moment. I don't know what it is. The universe of what that could be is unknowable, but I think I'm waiting to see, does a song or something we've done in the past have a moment? You said this to me last night, that like, we have this existing catalog. We have 26 years of music, and the average Tegan and Sara fan hasn't heard most of it. And what a gift that is, to think about not just reinventing it, but just to actually trust that it's out there to be found, and not be in a panic like, let's go, waterfalling, singles, new video content. Like, just trust that Sara can keep feeding her child and paying her mortgage without
accessibility that you're, and those verbs, they are inside that foundation, right? And I wonder if you could talk to us about why that emerged. We touched on it a bit, but why it emerged, and where does it fit in your lives now?
I think originally when we started talking about formalizing our activism and I wouldn't have called it philanthropy at that time. We definitely gave money to organizations that we connected with, and we were regularly donating charitable items. I don't know. And as I find that as you get sort of more eyeballs on you, more people know who you are, the volume of requests increases. And so it was sort of like just a very standard, like a lot of people will just come to you and say, hey, we can like put this together in a more formal way. And it just so happened that this guy, I don't think you'll know him, but his name was Donald Trump. And he got elected to be president the first time, and that was pretty shocking. And we were like, wow, this feels like sort of unbelievable timing, because what sort of had felt like quite a positive momentum advancing the rights of LGBTQ people, we knew that was going to really shift. There was going to be some sort of like steps backwards, and there was going to be sort of like perhaps a backlash, to some of the advancements that had come sort of in the Obama era. And we were right, and I think right away with the foundation, we just we saw that there were sort of gaps in funding, specifically around women in the community, and specifically grassroots organizations that didn't necessarily have scalability in this like very obvious philanthropic way. Like a lot of funders, and a lot of the goal is to grow an organization, and there's like it's a complicated process, and there's applications, and right away people, I think because we made ourselves so available to hear the feedback, most of the people we would speak to at these organizations or in the sort of like more grassroots community were saying, if you could just make it easier for us to get funding, and you could make it easier for us to be funded again and again without worrying that we have to like do a big song and dance and prove that we've like grown our organization, that would be life-changing. And so we really started doing that. And it didn't feel like a revolution of any kind, although I do think that there is more of that style now, I think, in philanthropy. I think they call it like trust philanthropy, I don't know, whatever. But this idea that the goal shouldn't just be to like take an organization and make it the new HRC. That's not the goal. So a lot of the work and the organizations that we have connected with and funded for a long time, they're small needs, like on paper, but they have like a huge impact. So for example, we work with an organization in Florida. One of their first grants that they applied for was just to pay for bus passes, so that people could come from, that they were located in the city. They wanted people in the suburbs who didn't necessarily have access to getting into the city to be able to come to, drop in to their organization. And we continue to fund organizations as long as they exist. If they can keep going, we want to keep going with them. We sort of see them as having potential, and we see them as having